Title: I woke up in a supermax prison. The cell door was open, and I am the only one here. You get used to the noise. That's the first thing they don't tell you about life inside. It's never, ever quiet. There's a constant low-frequency hum that vibrates through the concrete. It's the sound of 3,000 men breathing, coughing, sleeping, and hating. It's the hydraulic hiss of doors, the clank of keys, the squeak of boots, the drone of the HVAC system that smells like wet dust and bleach. Even at 3 a.m., the prison has a heartbeat, a sick, irregular heartbeat, but a heartbeat nonetheless. That's why I woke up. It wasn't a sound that woke me, it was the absence of it. My eyes snapped open, staring at the bottom of the bunk above me. It was dark, but not the usual dim, amber gloom of the night lights. It was pitch black. The hum was gone. The ventilation was dead. The snoring from cell 408 next door, Big Sal, who sounded like a chainsaw cutting through wet gravel, was gone. I lay there for a minute, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The silence was heavy. It felt pressurized, like the air in the room had become solid. "Sal?" I whispered. My voice sounded too loud, flat and unechoing. Nothing. I swung my legs out of bed. The concrete floor was freezing. Usually by 6 a.m. count, the guards are walking the tier, banging batons on the bars, screaming, get up, on the line!" I walked to the bars. I gripped the cold steel and gave it a routine shake, a habit born of 5 years of boredom. The door swung open. It didn't slide on its track with a mechanical grind. It just swung outward on hinges I didn't know it had, moving as silently as smoke. I froze. This is the part where the alarms go off. This is the part where the rubber bullets fly and the tasers crackle. I stepped back, hands up, waiting for the shout, "Inmate, get on the ground!" I waited 10 seconds, 20, a minute. I stepped out onto the tier. I'm in D block. It's 3 stories high, an atrium style, with cells ringing the outside and a common area in the pit below. Usually, D block smells like industrial cleaner and body odor. Today, it smelled like ozone, like the air right after a lightning strike, and copper. I looked across the gap to the cells on the other side. The doors were all standing wide open. "Hello?" I yelled. No echo. That was the most terrifying part. In a room this size, built of steel and stone, a shout should bounce. My voice just fell out of my mouth and died on the floor. I looked over the railing. The common area was empty. The metal tables were bolted to the floor. The phones hung on the wall, but there wasn't a soul. No guards in the bubble, no porters mopping the floor. I ran to the next cell. 411. Jenkins. Jenkins? His bed was made. Not just made, it was military tight, not a wrinkle. Jenkins was a slob. He never made his bed unless inspection was 5 minutes away. I checked 412, 413, 414. Every single bed was perfectly made. No personal items, no photos of girlfriends taped to the wall, no books, no commissary snacks, just the standard issue mattress, the wool blanket, and the pillow. It was like the prison had been reset. I felt a cold sweat breaking out on my back. I ran back to my cell. My stuff was still there. My beat-up copy of a Stephen King paperback, my little stash of instant coffee, my toothbrush. Why was I the only one left? I grabbed my shoes, Velcro, no laces, and slipped them on. I needed to get to the guard station. I needed to find a phone. I walked down the stairs. The silence was so absolute that the sound of my rubber soles on the metal steps sounded like gunshots. I made it to the bubble, the bulletproof glass enclosure where the COs sit.
The door to the bubble was unlocked. I stepped inside. The swivel chair was empty, still facing the monitors. A cup of coffee sat on the desk. I touched the cup. It was scalding hot. I recoiled, almost knocking it over. Steam curled off the surface. Someone had been here minutes ago, maybe seconds. "Officer?" I whispered, looking around the tight space. Then I looked at the monitors. I don't know how to explain what I saw. You know how CCTV footage looks? Grainy, black and white, slightly delayed? The screens were on. They showed D-block. I stared, my hands trembling, gripping the edge of the desk. On the monitor labeled Cam 4/Tier 2, I saw the inmates. I saw Jenkins leaning against the railing. I saw Sal walking with his towel over his shoulder. I saw the guards patrolling. I looked up through the glass of the bubble at the real Tier 2. Empty. Just the open doors and the silence. I looked back at the monitor. In the monitor, the world was normal. It was noisy, busy, alive. I could see their mouths moving. Then I saw myself. On the screen, Monitor Me was currently standing in the guard bubble, looking at the monitors. But Monitor Me wasn't alone. Standing directly behind Monitor Me, tall enough that its head brushed the ceiling tiles, was a shadow. It looked like a man stretched out on a rack. Long, spindly limbs that had too many joints. It was leaning over my shoulder on the screen, its face, if you could call it a face, inches from my ear. I spun around. Nothing, just the back wall of the bubble. A calendar from a local auto shop hung there. I looked back at the screen. The shadow was still there. It raised a long black finger and pointed at the door of the bubble. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I bolted.
I ran out of D-block, bursting into the main corridor, the main line. This is the artery of the prison. Usually you can't move 10 feet here without bumping into a CO or getting checked. It was endless, empty, and lit by flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed with a sound that felt like it was inside my teeth. I needed to get out. The intake processing center was at the front of the facility. If I could get there, I could get to the parking lot. I ran. I'm in decent shape. There's nothing to do in here but do push-ups and run laps in the yard. But I was gasping for air. The air felt thin, metallic. I passed the infirmary. The lights were off, but the doors were open. I heard a sound. Sloop, sloop, sloop. Wet, rhythmic, like a mop slapping against the floor. I skidded to a stop, hiding behind a vending machine near the staff break room. The sound was coming from around the corner, from the mess hall direction. Sloop, sloop. "Is anyone there?" I called out. Stupid, so stupid, but the isolation was making me irrational. The sound stopped. Then a voice. It sounded like a radio transmission being played through a blender. "Inmate 409. Head count is required." It wasn't a human voice. It was a collage of sounds clipped together to form words. The inmate sounded like Warden Hayes. The 409 sounded like the robotic automated phone system. I peeked around a vending machine. At the end of the hall, about 50 yards away, something was standing. It was wearing a CO's uniform, but the uniform was empty. No, not empty. It was flat. It looked like a suit of skin that had been ironed out, but it was standing upright, billowing as if inflated by a wind that I couldn't feel. The sleeves flapped, the pants rippled. "Return to cell," the voice chattered. It didn't come from the uniform. It came from the walls, from the floor, from the air itself. The uniform began to slide toward me. It didn't walk. It just dragged itself along the floor, frictionless. I turned and ran the other way. I scrambled toward the admin block. I needed a key card for the heavy doors, but I prayed the glitch or whatever this was had unlocked them too. I hit the crash bar on the door to admin. It opened. I stumbled into the plush, carpeted hallway of the administration offices.
This was a different world from the cell blocks. It smelled like stale coffee and copier toner. I tried the front doors. Locked, of course. The mechanical failure hadn't reached the perimeter. I looked for a window. I found one in the warden's office. I grabbed a heavy brass award statue, Warden of the Year 2019, and smashed the glass. It didn't shatter. It didn't even crack. The statue bounced off the glass with a dull thud, as if I'd thrown it against a rubber wall. I touched the window. It wasn't glass. It was cold, hard, but it felt slightly tacky, like old gelatin. I looked outside. There was no outside. There was no parking lot, no guard towers, no fences, no sky. Beyond the window, there was just gray static, like an old TV tuned to a dead channel. It swirled and shifted. Occasionally, I saw shapes in the static, huge geometric shapes that rotated slowly, cubes, pyramids. I backed away. What is this? I sobbed. Where am I? I looked at the warden's computer. It was on. I sat down, my fingers trembling over the keyboard. I don't know what I expected to find. An email explaining the apocalypse? A memo about a government experiment? The screen displayed a single window, a chat log. User admin. Subject 409 is awake. User overseer. Is he synced? User admin. Partial sync. He perceives the emptiness. User overseer. Reset the sensory dampeners. He cannot see the harvest. User admin. Unable. The dampeners have failed. He is viewing the raw data. User overseer. Then purge him. We cannot risk contamination. I stared at the words. Harvest? Raw data? A loud clank echoed from the hallway I had just come from. Then another. Clank. Clank. Clank.
Heavy boots, not the sliding sound of the empty uniform. This sounded like a riot squad. "Help!" I screamed. "I'm in here!" The door to the warden's office burst open. It wasn't a riot squad. It was me. 5 of them. 5 exact copies of me, dressed in prison blues. But their eyes were missing. Just smooth skin where the sockets should be. And their mouths were sewn shut with thick black wire. They didn't run. They walked with a jerky, stop-motion gait. I threw the brass statue at the first one. It hit him in the chest. He didn't flinch. He just kept coming. I scrambled backward, over the desk, backing into the corner against the gelatinous window. The first me reached out. His hand grabbed my ankle. His grip was like a hydraulic clamp. I kicked him in the face. It felt like kicking a bag of wet sand. I looked around for a weapon, anything. My hand brushed a letter opener on the desk. I grabbed it and stabbed it into the arm holding me. No blood, just a puff of gray dust like ash. The grip loosened. I scrambled up, jumping over the desk, dodging the grasping hands of the other 4 faceless doppelgangers. I sprinted out of the office, back into the hallway. I had nowhere to go but up. I found the stairwell to the roof access. I took the stairs 3 at a time. My lungs were burning. I burst onto the roof. I stopped. The sky was the static. The gray, swirling snow of a dead channel stretched infinitely in every direction. But that wasn't what stopped me. The prison didn't end at the perimeter wall. I looked over the edge. The prison went down. It was a tower, a massive, infinite tower of concrete and steel floating in the void. Below me, I could see thousands of floors of cells stretching down into the darkness until they vanished. Above me, thousands more, stretching up into the gray. We weren't in a prison. We were in a hive. And on the walls of the hive, crawling like ants, were the things I saw on the monitor. The spindly, long-limbed shadows. They were reaching into the cells. They were pulling things out. They were pulling people out.
I saw one of the creatures reach into a cell 3 floors down. It pulled out a screaming man. I recognized him. It was Miller, one of the COs. The creature didn't eat him. It unfolded him. It peeled him apart like layers of an onion, and then pushed the pieces into the concrete. Miller became part of the building. His face appeared in the stonework, mouth open in a silent scream. I realized then what the hum was, the heartbeat I heard every night. It wasn't the HVAC, it was the walls. It was the thousands of people fused into the structure, groaning in unison. A noise behind me. I turned. The door to the roof was open. The empty uniform was there. The faceless versions of me were there. And behind them, ducking to fit through the doorway, was one of the spindly shadow things. It didn't have a face, but I could feel it smiling. It raised a hand. It held a small black rectangle. A radio? No, a smartphone. It tossed the phone to me. It skittered across the gravel roof and stopped at my feet. The shadow pointed at the phone, then at me. I picked it up. It was unlocked. The Reddit app was open. "Document," the voice said. It came from inside my head this time. "Write. Tell them you are afraid. The fear flavors the meat." I looked at the edge of the roof. I could jump. I could fall into the static. "Jump," the voice in my head laughed. "You will only fall into the next cycle. You cannot leave the architecture." So I sat down. The faceless copies of me formed a circle around me, watching. The shadow thing stands over me, its long fingers twitching. It wants me to tell you this. It wants you to know. I don't think I'm in prison anymore. I don't think I'm in hell. I think I'm in a larder, and I think they like their food to be terrified before they harvest it. The silence is gone now. The hum is back. But now that I know what makes the noise, the moans of the fused, the crying of the walls, it's so much louder. I can hear Big Sal. I think he's the floor beneath me. I have to go now. The shadow is reaching for me. It says my time as a narrator is done. It says it's time to join the Foundation. If you wake up one night and everything is too quiet, if the air feels heavy, don't open your eyes. Just go back to sleep. If you see the emptiness, it sees you. Update. They're not taking the phone yet. They're watching me read the comments. Someone asked why I still have internet if there's no outside world. I checked the Wi-Fi connection. The network name isn't a router. It says Cerebral Cortex Link 409. I'm not on the internet. I think I'm streaming this directly from my mind to yours. God help you. You're connected to it now, too. End of log.